Warning, this video is going to be bullish, very, very bullish. It's also going to be a little speculative though. I want to talk about what I think we can expect. I know that in the times where the market is going down, people understandably are very careful and want to manage their expectations. And I will not say that that's not smart to do. That's very smart to do. However, you should find a great combination between being careful, but also being a little realistic still, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, the market is going down. And again, we should be careful with that because it can drop further. Although the market is now a lot lower than where it was a couple months ago, right? And a couple months ago, people were talking about, well, this could 5x, that could 10x. Now, that's way more likely to happen as we have a certain target where we can go to, but our starting point is now lower. This should not change, right? This should be the same. However, this target is now changing, right? So we have more upside right now, in my opinion. And I just want to talk about and speculate a little bit and do a lot of calls that are not going to come true. So disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer about how high it could go, and in what potential time frame that could happen. Okay, so welcome to the Fomo Factory. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Welcome, and let's get into it. So yeah, at this moment, Bitcoin is sitting at $84,000, 900 bucks, and it's holding on pretty well, right? If you look at Bitcoin on the daily, you can kind of see that it is in a falling wedge right here, which are usually bullish patterns, right? And it's been a little bit boring for sure. Since November, we basically have been going sideways, right? Up, down, but overall we are at the same point. So yeah, you can say like, well, it's going sideways for 5 months. It's not gonna come back. That's kind of what this cycle is doing anyway, all the time. Here we were going sideways for what, 8 months. Here we were going sideways for a half year. And that's just this cycle, right? At least for Bitcoin. What Bitcoin is doing, it goes sideways forever and then has a huge pump relatively fast, goes sideways for a long time, huge pump, sideways for a long time, huge pump. And I say sideways, but that sideways is actually also a downtrend, right? I mean, here Bitcoin went from $74,000 all the way down to $48,000, right? So all in all, in the sideways action, we saw a correction of 33%, right? And what we are seeing right now is kind of the same, right? We are now seeing a correction of 31%. So when I look at Bitcoin, I cannot really look at this chart and be like, oh, wow, something bad is going on, or it's not looking good, or we're not in a bull market or whatever. Bitcoin is just looking bullish as fuck. And it's doing what it's doing all the time. So nothing worrying about that. Then again, who cares about Bitcoin, right? I mean, if you were investing in Bitcoin in the bear market, great job. But buying Bitcoin right now to make a lot of money this cycle, I think it's a little too late for that, right? You can maybe make it two, if shit goes really crazy, a 3-4x out of that. But is that it? Is that it? Right? I don't know. But all in all, it looks really bullish. I'm looking at these charts on the weekly. Right? And on the weekly, that's quite of a big time frame. You can see that Bitcoin is really oversold on the momentum, right? There's the stochastic RSI is kind of a momentum indicator. And it's just telling us like we are really sitting at a level that we are not seeing many times, right? We saw it over here when Bitcoin was like dipping towards that 50K before we had the 2x run up. And the time before that, we were sitting over here where Bitcoin was sitting at $25,000 before it ran up to $75,000, did a 3x, right? We are now, again, guys, at that same level. We saw this like basically 2 times so far, well, 3 times so far in this cycle here as well. And then we were sitting at the bear market lows, right? So when I look at that indicator, it tells me like, hey, this is not an opportunity that you get like daily or weekly. This is so far like the third one for this whole cycle, right? So therefore, I am lately, especially lately, like super bullish. Like, I know it sucks. I know that Trump is messing it up for everybody, etc. But it's also kind of what the market always does, whatever the news is, right? The momentum, it resets. And whenever that's low, overall, that's a great buying area, right? Over the long term. This could take months to play out, right? From here, it was June, July, August, right? And we were topping out here in like what, January. So this is a move. It could take months, maybe half a year, but the returns are also way bigger, right? Now, again, yeah, that's BTC, great, right? That's fine. But what about alts? Now, what I've said in my latest videos is that I'm playing on the defense, right? And it's arguably that even the defense is not defensive enough. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the safer altcoins, right? You could have said to yourself like, well, I'm going very safely in Mantra. Good luck with that kind of stuff, right? Rugged. So even the bigger projects, they can turn out to be scams, right? But they make the front page basically because, hey, everybody knows Mantra. Not everybody knows the 100,000 shitcoins that get rugged on the daily, so nobody cares about that. But it does tell you that, hey, even if you are playing safe, there's no guarantee, right? There's no guarantee. And this will always be the case. This has nothing to do with altcoins being bad. You should be in Bitcoin only. In every single cycle, we have huge scams that are going on. And therefore, spread your eggs in multiple baskets, right? Nevertheless, I'm playing a little on the defense right now. By being in coins like, Superverse, which is already quite risky, if you ask me. But Superverse, I think that if you want to play it a little safe, you can look at a Render, at a Chain GPT, at an AVAX, etc. Because the reason why people don't like to do that is like, yeah, but they are not making big returns. I don't know. You know that lately we haven't seen an alt season, right? In the last couple of days, weeks, or no alt season. It's also not a strong reversal in the market. There's nothing bullish that happened. The only thing that happened lately is that the massively overblown news that we got about the tariffs and that people were freaking out about, time went by and people shut the fuck up about it finally, right? That's the only thing what happened. And what happened with prices on high caps, relative safe coins, 40%, right? So it shows you that even if there is basically not a single piece of good news, there was no good news. There was just bad news all the time. And maybe we got a piece of news where it turned out that it wasn't that bad, right? That was the good news, right? But even without good news, you can see that the relative safer coins pump 40%. Imagine if we get good news, if the market finally does turn around, if we get a reversal, if altcoins start to outperform, if just something happens, what happens every single cycle, then we can really pump, right? And that will only be beneficial for you if you prepare now, basically, right? The lows so far, hey, we are far from it. Then again, we are further from the highs, in my opinion, so it's not too late. Now, if you look at every single altcoin that I'm popping up right here, what stands out? Same, right? The stochastic momentum on the weekly is completely oversold still, right? And again, that's what we don't see that a lot, right? So this indicates that very likely a very big move to the upside is going to happen over the next couple months, right? Now, the question is when, the question is with how much. Also, you should not think like, wow, I'm going to witness it. And you are witnessing it, right? Again, AVAX already pumped 40%. Next week, it might pump another 40%. And you will still be like, no, when is it coming? It is happening already, maybe, right? This has a long, long, long way to go, right? If you compare to this move, for example, where we were just as oversold, AVAX pumped with 7.5x, right? And I'm talking about one of the lowest risk altcoins out there, right? One of the higher gaps. So the moves can be very big. Here, same example, we were from the bottom, and this was a 3.5x basically. Let alone how the low caps were doing. Right now, I want to give you another example before I'm gonna get into my speculative, going to be wrong kind of prediction. But if you look at Citus, for example, what I did, I marked off all the times where the weekly stochastic RSI, the momentum indicator, was just as or even less oversold as where we are right now, and the moves that came from it, right? It's now oversold. Now, what you see and what you should be careful with this, though, is that if you are seeing a coin that's oversold, it doesn't mean that it's a great buy right away, right? Because here we were also oversold. Look where the price was sitting back then. It was here. It was like 8 times as high. Right. So in that case, it wasn't the greatest time. But what we are seeing right now with a lot of coins is that they are having their uptick finally, right? Also, it's not a confirmation. Here we also had an uptick, and then we had a final kind of crash, right? Where we were at the bottom, had an uptick, did a pretty decent return, and then the last wipeout. Could also be. I don't know. That's shorter term stuff. Whatever. In the short term, I think the market is too volatile for that at the moment. You know, people they look at the news, they freak out, especially in crypto, and the liquidity is already very low. And therefore, on the short term, I think that charting is not that accurate. But on the long term, you'll know with the tariffs as well, right? The dust settles. People they realize that it's all a little overblown. And if you look at the levels where we are right now, this is COVID stuff, right? We can all agree that COVID was a bit worse than what's going on right now, right? While the fucking opportunity price-wise for a lot of coins is pretty much the same. So in that case, I feel like, oh my God, people are making too big of a deal out of it. And therefore, it is not smart to sell the fear. It's never, but this is, I made a couple videos, right? And some people, they agree, some people, they don't agree. But I think that where we are right now, if you look back in a couple months, half a year, I don't know, you wish you bought at these levels, okay? Nothing goes down forever. We know that, right? So, but if you look at Citus, for example, whenever we were this low, pump of 350%, pump of 2000%, pump of 60%, pump of 300%, pump of 80%. So what you'll notice is that from these levels, the least that we get is at least 60% so far, right? Although here we were by far not as extremely oversold as what we are right now. Here we were oversold and we got out of it right away, basically, right? This one is oversold for a full quarter already, right? And it now gets the uptick. Also, Citus, and this is so far pretty accurate because from that wick low, it is already up 60%. Now, I'm not saying buy Citus right away, right? Like this is one of the higher risk coins. This is a very high risk coin, but also the potential returns are way higher, right? You're not going to get a 2,000% on ETH, for example. But the cool thing is in this case that it is still oversold, and we already got a 60% pump from the bottom, right? Now, of course, you did not buy the bottom. Probably not, right? Who did? Who cares, right? If you buy during these times, whether it's here, or even here, again, in a couple months, it will be a very good tactic. So what I want to look at is kind of that. And then for the altcoin market in general. But I want to look at a couple of the charts first, because there are just a lot of charts that confirm the hell out of what we are looking at. Right now, we looked at Bitcoin. It's nothing weird like that's just doing what it does all the time, right? However, if we, for example, look at Ethereum, we kind of need Ethereum to do well in order for the rest of the altcoin market to do well. Ethereum on the weekly extremely oversold as well. Now, what I find more interesting is the Ethereum dominance, because that's more of a ratio, right? Ethereum dominance has nothing to do with diminishing returns or whatsoever. It's just a ratio between Ethereum and the rest of crypto. Now, in all honesty, my best guess first was that this trend line would mean something, right? That we could see a reversal here because that was the pattern. However, that didn't play out, right? We saw a bounce here and then we broke it. Okay, cool. That's off the table. What I'm looking at right now, though, what we're seeing right now is that Ethereum bounced off of the same levels as what it did here. The all-time macro low. Now, I didn't expect that we were going to go that low. Actually, I didn't. But we did, right? So if I'm looking at this right now, I do look at it like, okay, we went lower, but the opportunity is now bigger as well, if you know what I mean, right? Because whenever we were here, if you bought ETH or altcoins or whatsoever, the rest of the cycle, you were printing money like crazy, right? And I want you to get it out of your head if you're thinking like, well, this time is different. No, this, like, maybe, maybe it turns out to be. But is that the best bet to take right now? What if you did that over here, right? What if you did that with altcoins over here or over here, over here, anywhere in full history? That didn't turn out well. So you can look at insanely low, oversold, overfeared levels, retail, quiet, everything, and be like, well, that's where I'm going to be bearish. Huh? I wouldn't do it. I would not do it. Maybe that will turn out to be the best strategy, but it's at least not the best bet to take, right? We all know that. So what am I looking at right now? Well, these are some couple charts that I saw. The DXY confirms it, right? If you look at the DXY, your altcoins are paired against a weak dollar. That's great, right? So you can say whatever you want about Trump, like oh, he's fucking it all up. I honestly think that this is all part of the plan. He's a capitalist. He's a businessman. He knows about this stuff more than we do, right? We needed stuff to break. Well, if you look at the S&P, this is not what we call breaking, right? This is not what we call breaking. This is what we call dips. This is kind of what we call breaking, right? Just like we saw with COVID. That broke. The Fed has a reason to now finally pivot, right? And to start cutting rates and QT, etc. Now, the interesting thing is that that goes hand in hand with the Bitcoin dominance, right? The Bitcoin dominance has been in an uptrend. And my first prediction was that we would have seen an alt season end of 2024 / beginning 2025. It's now April. I can't call this 2025 anymore, so that was wrong, right? Why though? And by the way, if you feel like, oh, you got this wrong, so I want to listen to you, like yeah, if I of course, right? Everybody gets stuff wrong, and you cannot be weak in crypto and get everything right. It's not possible, right? The reasoning for me, but back then, was the seasonality, right? We always get an alt season at the beginning of the post-halving year, so that was most likely to me. Not realizing back then that that's driven by, well, it's driven by macro, and I realized that. Also, I thought that the macro would perfectly fit in that seasonality as well. And that's this cycle a bit later. And that's fine. There's nothing to lose with getting something off like that. But the forecast is now a lot better, in my opinion. And there's more certainty, although the charts don't really include that, because the charts are too busy including all the fear in the market. What the fuck am I talking about? Well, if you look at the Bitcoin dominance, for example, right? Here, the Bitcoin dominance went down in March 2017, right? Given the 4-year cycle, that would have been last month. Well, if it happens today or whatever, that's close enough to a 4-year cycle anyway to me. Here, it happened in December, January, right? Now it's April. Okay, cool. So that timeline, especially compared to the last cycle, is a bit different. Compared to 2017, it's not really that different so far. However, apart from that, we now have confirmation from the Fed that, hey, QT is likely going to stop. And I would say 90% sure that it's going to stop in May or June, right? It's already, QT is already slowed down. The Fed already said, hey, we're likely going to stop QT halfway 2025. And then Trump came like an elephant in a glass house. Like, here's your reason, right? So this is more. Like, we finally have a reason. Now, apart from all of that, these are the narratives, right? Apart from all of that, if you look at the Bitcoin dominance and the risk levels, right? So if you look at risk levels, they work pretty well. If you look for the Bitcoin dominance, it's now sitting at 0.9, right? 0.9, that's high risk, right? If you apply that on Bitcoin, for example, it's only between 0.9 and 1, that has always been a moment to go and get the fuck out, right? Not the perfect timing always, right? Like if you would have done that here, you would have sold at 57K, right? And eventually they went to 63. That's not the point, right? But if you buy at the lower risk levels, the blue ones, and you sell around the higher ones, the red ones, then you're trading the cycle like a champ, right? And these risk levels are based on a lot of different indicators, and that's what Benjamin Cohen did. Shout out to him. So we know that the 0.9 and 1 risk level is the level where you want to be very careful with an asset, right? Whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's the total crypto market, you see that it marks peaks. You can also apply it on the Bitcoin dominance, though. And if you now look at the Bitcoin dominance, you see that we got a couple of these dots now already. The fun thing is that in 2021, we got such a dot, and it was basically the last warning, like, hey, Bitcoin dominance is sitting, like it's flashing right now. And right after it fell, we got into a fat decline, aka alt season, right? Here as well, we were already flashing a lot, and then we declined. Even here, before we got that second leg, we got a first good dump before that. And in 2017, we didn't even get that far, right? There the risk level was 0.7. Right? It was lower than what it is right now. So in other words, the Bitcoin dominance is showing like, this is getting really fucking over, like, dangerous, right? Like if it was an altcoin or whatever, sell now, right? Like now. Well, that's what the Bitcoin dominance is looking like. So I'm not saying that the top is in for the Bitcoin dominance, but I'm saying being bullish on the Bitcoin dominance now, that's literally the same as being bullish on Bitcoin here, or here. Not the best bet to take. Again, that's one indicator, but combining that with what the Fed said and what Trump is actually doing should make enough sense to bet on altcoins, okay? So that's really interesting to me. And again, if it doesn't play out like next week already, that's not the point. We're looking at bigger time frames right here, right? This could take months to play out. But what if it plays out, which is not that big of an if, in my opinion? Well, what do we see then? Okay, so if we go to the altcoin market, right? And disclaimer for the people that haven't seen this chart before, this is the top 125, excluding the top 10. So no Bitcoin, Ethereum, stable coins, or high caps, really high caps, but no low caps as well, right? The Ronins, the AVAXs, the whatever, everything in the top 125, excluding top 10. So if this chart makes a move, then every really low cap altcoin is probably going to do that on steroids, right? Whether it's to the up or the downside. So this chart is now showing the following. We are in the following wedge. Look, first off, this pattern right here, again, this one, broken. Fine. It doesn't mean that it's over. It just means that one pattern is broken right now. We should look for new / other support resistance levels, right? But I'm keeping it here. Could turn out to be a fake out of a couple of weeks. We've seen that before, but I'm leaving it here. But what we are seeing right now, one, we are in a falling wedge on a big time frame, right? I'm not looking at the 4 hour. I'm looking at the weekly. So the move is going to be bigger as well. Now, a falling wedge tends, it's not a guarantee, but tends to break out to the upside. And that's a big level. And if we then going to measure that, then we are getting, let me get that, a target of where we potentially break out in the first leg of around $317 billion, right? So from this point, that could be 50% up. Well, doesn't sound that exciting, right? But again, from the absolute wick low until now, we have seen 20%. And I've just shown that even an AVAX does a 40%, right? So if this is going to be 50%, then an AVAX could easily do a 2x from this price. And I'm not even talking about the low caps. So that's the first leg. Now, other than that, what we were talking about at the beginning, the stochastic momentum, right? So with the stochastic RSI, we have seen one period of being completely oversold, which we are right now, basically. But in the past of this cycle, we have seen one, and we have seen two, right? And you can say three, actually. Let's make that, yeah, that counts as well, right? What were the moves, right? And again, this is not predicting because this is not going to happen. But if you take an average, I do think that you get the most realistic expectation, right? In the first move, we saw a move up of 92%. In the second move, which was here, we have seen a move up of 370%. And in the third move, we have seen a move up of 200%. Right? So if we, I'm not going to pretend like I can do this math from the top of my head. So if we take the average, 92 plus 370 plus 200 divided by 3, that's an average move of 220%, right? So that would be average, right? It's not bearish, it's not bullish, it's average, 220%. This is the most realistic. This is what the cycle has been doing so far, right? So I hope we understand that it's not a prediction as well, but this would be the most realistic bet to take based on what we have seen so far. That would mean a new cycle high. Matter of fact, that would be an all-time high for the altcoin market. Well, is it weird? Let's back that up. Is it weird to expect an all-time high in the altcoin market in the post-halving year? No, that happens like literally always. So also, that's the most realistic bet, right? Would, for me, be the unrealistic thing would be, oh, we're not getting a new all-time high, right? That would be different. So far, it's not that different, right? Also, it will take it to this trend line, by the way. I haven't seen that before. Kind of depending on when that move is going to happen as well, by the way. But that could mean something as well, right? So 220%. Again, it sounds like, wow, look, if you look again that an AVAX, for example, moves twice as hard, right? Then you could say like AVAX 440%, that's 5.5x. 5.5x on AVAX, is that weird, right? Like, nah, I mean, 440% for AVAX would be here, right? Would be slightly above the cycle high so far. Now, I know that a lot of people are careful and cautious and saying like, well, if we get here, then I'm gonna take my. You have to realize though that this move right here with AVAX and a lot of other coins happened during QT, a moment in the market where it's by far not beneficial for really risky assets like altcoins, right? Now we are having it's not confirmed, but yeah, it's pretty likely that QT is going to end. So if the market conditions be better here than here, then why is it weird that coins also will do better, right? Like that's, if the market is better, the coins will do better, right? So can we see this? I think that this is my average expectation for a lot of coins, right? Again, this is not my bear case scenario. This is not my bull case scenario. This is not my what if case scenario. This is not my alt season case scenario. This is just my, if the market moves like it moves on average so far, then this is probably somewhere the target, right? Now, I want to talk about the fact that we are most likely going to get an alt season. But I'm going to get a lot of shit for that. Probably, right? Because we so far haven't seen it, so it's not going to happen, right? If we see that, I'm going to do that in another video, though. If we see that, which in my opinion is a likelihood of 95%, right? I'm saving 5% just in case whatever the fuck happens, right? But in my opinion, it's most likely that it's going to happen. Then we can move these targets way higher, right? That's mass euphoria. But that is also a feeling that if people didn't witness this alt season, can't even realize how that is. And if you did, if you were here, then you probably forgot it, right? Forgot how it feels. Because you went through a bear market, you went to chops, you went to a moment of excitement and disappointment again, and excitement and disappointment. You don't know how this feels anymore, probably, right? Whenever you are here, though, it's crazy to think that we're not going to go to 50 trillion. Like, how can you say we're not going to the moon, Mars, and beyond? Like, that would be the crazy thing, right? And that's all emotion. Yeah, that all season target, we'll talk about that. In any way, I do think that if you are buying now, and I'm not talking about today, yesterday, tomorrow, but around this whole period in the market where there is FUD, fear, uncertainty, brokenness, that you will do very, very well. Right? And there will always be people that say that you shouldn't buy and that it's all going to the hell. But that's mostly coming from people that either stepped in the market really high, that bought the wrong coins, that look at one indicator maybe that says something bearish against the 30 that are bullish, right? These are the people that are really, really, really wrecked, right? And that maybe already sold the bottom and therefore don't want the market to go up anymore. And for these people, I only want to say this. You blame the markets, you blame your favorite influencer for your fuck-ups. You blame your neighbors, blame your dog, you blame your mother. Let's not be responsible, let's just blame each other. All right, whatever. Coming soon on Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes, Deezer, etc. But the smartest thing to do, and although people, it's hard to believe, and I'm losing followers on being bullish at low prices, but it's what it is. The smartest thing to do, ignore bears. Be stubborn. At this point, whatever happens, be a perma bull for a couple months. Doesn't matter. Because these are the times, like if you did that over here, you would have done great. If you did that over here, you would have done great. If you did that over here, you would have done great, right? That's how the market is. There's fear, FUD, uncertainty, doubt, that's FUD. People are scared, again, people are wrecked. These are the times where you want to buy. You don't want to buy when everybody is happy and making money. Then you are exit liquidity. It's the one or the other, right? Very simple. It's not that hard. If you are now bearish, then you are new. That I cannot see another reason, right? So if you listen to them, you're listening to people who just stepped into the what do they know? No offense if you are new, but don't try to tell people then that you should not like. These are your emotions. You want to counter trade that. You don't want to go with them. You don't want to put your money in your emotions, right? So yeah, I do think that whatever happens tomorrow and next week doesn't matter. I think that in a couple months we can see this. Now, how long could that take before we wrap it up? Also not predictable, right? Like again, this target 500 something billion could be 400, could be 600. I don't know, right? Something around that. Same as the time, right? From this moment where we were oversold, yeah, from where do you take it? Where are we now compared to here, right? You could say like, hey, yeah, we were here. We are here now. You could say we are here, right? You could say like, hey, this bump right here is never going to happen. We're just going to go up like we did over here, right? So that's hard to say. But overall, from the moment where we had that bottom, let's take that, and so far the bottom wick, right? It took about 120 days, so 4 months, to get to that level, right? 4 months. How long did it take over here? From this wick until this stop, it took 280 days. Right? So that's long, but this was a start of the bull market again, right? We are now already there. Although it doesn't feel like that, yeah, this is a bull market. This is how bull markets do, right? You can also lose 80% of your money in the bull market. It's crypto, it's not the S&P. Here, it went very fast though, right? Here, it took like not even 2 months. So it varies from 2 months until like 10 months, right? So if anything, we could be sitting there in May. But it could also be that this is the slower move like here, right? And that is going to take us 280 days, something like that. And that this is just going to play out until the rest of the year. And that's where we top out. So that's kind of hard to predict. And I'm not going to try to do that. Now, there are more indicators than this that you can use. I know overall, I find that hard to do. But all I do know is that every single chart that I'm looking at is really bullish. We are by far not there yet. But what do I mean by really bullish? One, prices are really low. Two, we have that combined with a lot of confirmation now. That's the ratio. So I want to leave it there. For now, be a little careful though. Like I said, you play on the defense with your altcoins. Don't be in the risky shit just yet. I don't think it's time for that. But realize that even the risky altcoins can wreck you. Look at the mantra, right? It happens. That sucks, but yeah, that's just what happens. Overall, if we look at the high caps versus the low caps, though, the low caps are still getting nicely wrecked against the high caps. And like we saw, we don't need a kind of a bullshit shitcoin to make an easy 5x. You can just use AVAXs, maybe Ethereum, that these render for that. You'll be fine. Be in those first. Make your good money, and then let's gamble once you feel like you have room financially to gamble. So like the video if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the bell notification on, and I'll be back tomorrow, I think. Maybe not, I don't know. Surprise.